full disclosure, I'm Robin Farzad.
So I want to ship a dead body from China, but it's hard to find a white body in China, especially fat like Eric. So I buy a fat white cadaver from Cincinnati Medical School. But to ship it to China, then switch a box, then ship back, it's way too much money.
That is none other than comedian Jian-Yang playing the infamous Jian-Yang on HBO's Emmy-nominated series Silicon Valley, which is loved the country over every Sunday night. Yang has been on Colbert, he's been featured in Vanity Fair, and he's going to be coming again to the big screen later this summer. And you must read his new book, How to American. He's ours, so do stay with us. This week's episode is sponsored by our friends at Elwood Thompson's. You're going to hear me say it yet again because I believe in them, the best market in Virginia. It's also been rated the best market by various contests and reader surveys online. Check them out at elwoodthompsons.com, at the top of Carytown in the mothership, and of course at the new Institute for Contemporary Arts, where Elwood's has a juice and coffee bar and light snacks. They are so quintessentially Richmond. Love them. You will too. Visit them at the top of Carytown. Joining us from NPR Los Angeles is none other than Jimmy O. Yang, actor, stand-up comedian, and writer best known for the portrayal of Jian-Yang on HBO's Emmy-nominated series Silicon Valley. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
You're also going to see Jimmy Yang in this summer's anticipated Crazy Rich Asians. And you must pick up his new book, How to American, An Immigrant's Guide to Disappointing Your Parents. It had me in stitches, and I had to figure out a way to get you on my show. So I'm grateful for having you, sir.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for enjoying the book, and I'm glad you liked it.
Well, I have to ask you, you're in Los Angeles right now, and you're a creature of Southern California. But when you do make it up to the Bay Area, what is that like? Because you kind of become this icon through, I think, what am I, on the 4th or 5th season of Silicon Valley now?
5th season now. It's been kind of crazy. And every season I go up there, I get recognized a little more often. I think San Francisco, it's such a metropolitan city. If you're just walking down the streets, there's so many people walking down the street, you can kind of not get recognized, right? Which is great. But then if I'm ever visiting like Facebook, Google, or having a meeting at like something like even Lyft or Dropbox, it's just like a crowd of people looking at me like I'm some kind of zoo animal.
Do you do stand-up shows in the Bay? I mean, what if you were just show up at Palo Alto?
I did do some stand-up shows, and really, at the end of the day, I'm super blessed. That is my best market, because it's a heavy Asian population, and it's a lot of Silicon Valley people. So I just sold out a show at the San Jose Improv. That was awesome, and I'm going back to San Francisco at the end of May to do some shows.
I got to ask you, because you were on several times with, now she should get a limited cast role on Silicon Valley, is Emily Chang from Bloomberg West. That, man, you look for you on YouTube, and it has your kind of, gag experience on Bloomberg West, and that kind of stamps you as an icon of Silicon Valley.
Is that what it is? I didn't know that. But yeah, that was really cool because that turned out to be one of my favorite scenes, my interview, Jian-Yang's interview on Bloomberg. And that wasn't on the show. That was like extra clips that we did for the internet, for the fans, and they got a great response. So
how did you keep a straight face? How did she keep a straight face in doing this? I mean, she had to play along like, seafood, you got a VC valuation and everything. You turn to the camera in very gangster fashion and very, I'm rich.
A lot of time we don't keep a straight face. Sometimes my goal is to just make like my castmates laugh. Thomas breaks sometimes, and I like doing that. I know it doesn't actually help the efficiency of filming the show, but we know we've done something right when the other person start like chuckling a little. We might have to retake the take, but you know we got something there.
So tell me, how many years have you been in the United States? I mean, I recommend everybody pick up the book, How to American, because you have a very unusual immigrant upbringing here where it upset your parents and that you wanted to be a comedian and not a straight-laced, banker or doctor or engineer. I very much am familiar with the experience as a journalist, Iranian American. I mean, to my parents, I'm all but dead, right? So, but tell me when you came here exactly.
Yeah, so I came here when I was 13 from Hong Kong. And now I'm 30, so I've been here for 17 years now. In a way, people ask me, where did you grow up?
27 years you've been here. Oh, no, you're 30.
No.
Oh, I thought you're 40. Man, you're so young. So you came here.
I'll be a very young-looking 40-year-old.
So you came here at the turn of the century?
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. So it was right when Hong Kong was given back to China, and there was a lot of fear. I think that's partly the reason why my family wanted to move here, but mainly for me and my brother's education. And to much of their disappointment, first of all, I didn't get into neither UCLA or USC, and I went to UCSD, and I got an economics major, but obviously I never used it.
Well, it's intensely difficult to get into UCLA or Berkeley as a Chinese person. I know this as an Iranian person as well, but they have such an abundance of qualified Californians applying, and they have to be disciplined about it. But when did you realize that this wasn't for you, and you almost had to risk disappointing your dad and kind of go off on your own?
It was when I had an internship at Smith Barney that my dad hooked me up with, which is like every Asian parent's dream for your kids to work at like Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, or like Goldman Sachs, right? So he was super happy, but then I was sitting behind that desk like at my internship, just want to kill myself. It was the worst.
I know the feeling. I was a spreadsheet
Yeah.
monkey at Goldman Sachs. I know the feeling.
Oh, yeah, so the first couple months was okay, but then it got to when the routine set and you just start hating on everyone that got more money than you, looking at their mutual funds, and I'm like, I was almost having a panic attack, having to sit there from like 9 to 5 every day, and I saw my next 40 years, my life flash in front of me. And to me, that was the most scary thing. Like going to do my first open mic wasn't nearly as scary as the thought of sitting at this desk for 40 years.
Dying a slow death on Wall Street.
Exactly.
And so your big break was when?
Gotta think Silicon Valley. Before that, literally between season 1 and 2 of Silicon Valley, I was driving Uber. Because season 1, I only had like 5 words, total. And I was in
Wait.
3
You were
episodes.
literally an Uber driver between seasons 1 and 2 of Silicon. Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Yes. But nobody recognized me then, I only had 5 words on the show. And I wasn't a series regular, so I was getting paid like, SAG after minimum. I was just happy to be on a show as a recurring character. I was getting paid, I don't know, like $900 a day or something like that. Luckily, I can stop driving Uber now.
And don't get me wrong, I'm all about like animal rights. I'm all about like free range animal. But I still live in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 roommates. I'm not even a free range human being, okay? I don't need to eat a chicken to live better than I did. The chicken's on 20 acres in Napa. I'm in 200 square foot in Pacoima.
As a comedian growing up, you get how crappy life is at some point, But you're enjoying it. You're still doing open mics. You're doing comedy. All you care about is stage time. That's like your crack, But then so many comics I know shared a bedroom. Like I shared a 1-bedroom apartment in Little Armenia here in East Hollywood.
Little Armenia.
With 2 roommates. So we have 3 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment. We got one guy living in my closet. The other guy had a girlfriend, It was just a whole mess. But looking back, that was still one of like the most fun times in my career,
I loved reading something about your experience in high school with this ragtag group of non-Chinese people, Iranians, right? There was one person who was from Bangladesh, how you made deals with other people to get discount lunch tickets. I just want to read a little bit of the book for everybody. I met my first non-Chinese friend in Beverly Hills High during the second semester of freshman year. Jeremy was a Persian kid on the football team, but he didn't act particularly Persian or particularly like a football jock. We hit it off making fun of the other kids in our 6th period computer class. Jeremy and his friends had a table on the top floor next to the cafeteria, and I started to sneak away from the Chinese Culture Club to hang out with them. They were the most diverse group of dudes I've seen since the We Are the World music video. Jeremy and his cousin Phil were Persians who were into normal American teenager stuff like Star Wars, Madden, and the Justice League. Zaki Hashem was an honor student from Bangladesh. Bo Kim was a quiet Korean immigrant. Chris O'Connor, a tall, lanky, half-white Native American dude who wore T-shirts 3 sizes too big. And Derek Wah was an ABC, American-born Chinese, whose parents were also from Shanghai, and he spoke Shanghaise. When a Shanghaise person finds another Shanghaise in America, it's like finding a best friend who has the same birthday and who also happens to be a long-lost cousin. You talk in this book about how much you long to be a, quote, normal American kid. I mean, your dad was a great cook. He would send you off with smelly Chinese food. The first time you had a football thrown at you, you fell on the ground and everything. I remember that struggle from elementary school, but for you to come here as kind of an adolescent is a whole other kind of torture.
Yeah, I think 13 is a hard age for anyone, but I had to learn a new language, a new culture, make new friends, learn a new sport, you know. And I think every kid, they just want to be normal, so they don't get made fun of, they don't stand out. And I tried very hard to be as American I could be for, I don't know, the past 17 years. And, it's a process. It's, first of all, you just start copying things on the surface. You see kids playing football, so you go watch the Super Bowl. You see kids listening to hip hop and sagging their pants, so you watch Rap City on BET. That's how I learned my English.
So tell me your English that you learned from BET. I think I saw this on Arsenio or something.
It's a lot of slangs and stuff, right? I mean, first of all, I didn't even know what "what's up" meant. That's not really a word they teach you back in Hong Kong, or a phrase. And then everything else, like you learned, like Big Pimpin'. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew it was an awesome music video. It was like every boy's dream, to be Big Pimpin', or like the thong song. I didn't know what a thong was, but I learned it from that video. So everything that and in between, country grammar, everything Nelly was talking about, that's how I got acclimated with my English. And also BET Comic View. That was a big influence for me.
Do you remember one comedian in particular who influenced you on BET?
Oh, there's so many. I loved all the hosts. All the hosts were great. Bruce, J. Anthony Brown, Ricky Smiley. I mean, it was so many different amazing comics, because every comic did like 5-10 minutes on there, and you just learn a lot, not only the language but the culture from these comics. When they talk about I remember one comedian was talking about he had a bad transmission in his car, and y'all know that black people all have bad transmission in their cars, and the crowd like clapped, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I didn't know black people had bad transmissions. And then they're like, white people do crazy things like bungee jumping and skydiving. I didn't know that. Growing up, all I knew was Chinese people. So seeing all that, it's like getting like an insider look of how certain parts of America view the other parts, and how people, looked at each other, and almost learned about the stereotypes, by watching that show.
So I want to get to the first season of Silicon Valley, and you were a revelation for me, as was, TJ Miller, who may or may not be on the show anymore. He's I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but he's stuck in an opium den in Tibet, or maybe comes back, maybe doesn't come back. But as you described in the book, there is this kind of Chinese clown humor thing going on, where there's a straight guy and a clown, or like a putz, and they make fun of each other. And you guys had this dynamic where you were always trying to one-up each other and scam one another. Or, he was very much, you cut your teeth on TJ. And similarly, you imagine TJ from the first season, like Jian-Yang, he's always trying to rein you in. I remember was that first scene of you gutting a fish in the kitchen or burning trash? Talk to me about kind of bringing that discipline, which you described in the book, that Chinese humor technique to Silicon Valley.
I don't know if I said Chinese clown. I think it was more like Laura and Hardy with us too. This big buffoonish guy and this small innocent guy and they always either try to one up each other or like bump heads with each other. But deep down, there's like a brotherly love, and I think that's why people love watching these two. And yeah, I just really playing Jian-Yang is like playing myself when I first came to this country. I had an accent. I was like the foreign kid that didn't understand much, so it came pretty naturally to me. And growing up, I watched a lot of Stephen Chow in Hong Kong, and he's so amazing. Like, a lot of people know him for Kung Fu Hustle, Shaolin Soccer, but before that, he had a ton of Hong Kong movies, and he is like that perfect deadpan humor guy. And to me, that was amazing. That's what I grew up watching. So a lot of Jian-Yang kind of came from that. And of course, Mike Judge helped mold the whole character. He's very much into the deadpan kind of underplayed tone of satire. So it just, as me and TJ's character's relationship developed, I think it was great. Like one season, it was him yelling at me, and the next season, it's me getting my revenge, and everything is kind of earned. Even though Jian-Yang becomes kind of like a big asshole in a way, it's it's okay because Ehrlich was the one that's being really mean to him before that.
Ehrlich Bachman. Full disclosure, I'm Robin Farzad. We're talking to Jimmy O. Yang. You know him and love him as Jian-Yang on HBO's Silicon Valley, which is a must-see TV every Sunday night and on DVR. His book, which dropped last month, is How to American, An Immigrant's Guide to Disappointing Your Parents. It was a great title, and it was a very quick read, and I loved it. And I just know a lot as an immigrant myself that I shared with this book. I have some difficult questions that I have to get to. Let me throw out like a loaded one at the very top right here.
Sure.
When I laugh at what you do on Silicon Valley, should I feel any pang of guilt about laughing at that?
Well, I guess
do you feel like you're authentically representing what Jimmy O. Yang wants to do? Do you worry about the caricature, about I mean, I'm sure you hear this elsewhere, that Jian-Yang might become a stereotype of like the crafty Asian guy always plotting behind the scenes?
Sure, or the accent or whatever. Like for me, it's always, I just try to play it as authentically as possible. The accent is from my mom and from my uncles back in Shanghai, you know, and a lot of these experiences, it's similar to mine when I first came to this country. So I get it. I think the stereotype, and maybe it's not a caricature. He's more or less in a way almost very anti-type. Like he's not the nicest person, right? But so he's kind of a butthole, but really it's the opposite of what you think an Asian nerd would be. So I really like doing that. And at the end of the day, I think what's more important is the representation of Asians as a whole. So the representation shouldn't only fall on Jian-Yang's lap, but sadly, a lot of it does because he's one of the few Asian series regular characters on TV. But I just hope to see more and more Asian characters and a whole spectrum of them. You know, like, for example, in Crazy Rich Asians, this movie that's about to come out, you see a whole spectrum of Asian people. You got like the really good-looking, romantic Asian people. You got the funny, crazy Asian people. And you got the ridiculous. You got whatever, you know. So I think that's what's more important, to see it as a spectrum instead of putting all the weight in this one character. And for me, portraying Jian-Yang is just portraying a real person that exists somewhere. You know, I never try to play as a caricature or anything like that. And most of the stuff is based on my own experience.
Is there any part of you that wishes maybe you were one of the programmers alongside, you know, Dinesh and Guilfoyle and Richard? It seems like you're on the periphery. You're always, I mean, you kind of accidentally ended up in the incubator that Ehrlich Bachman had, which was kind of like an overrated accidental place to begin with. And you were always trying to get free rent, or you were exchanging documents with him and saying, no, you cannot legally evict me. It was a bit of a sideshow. And without spoiling it for anyone, you could intimately get involved with it now that Ehrlich is out of the picture and that you have maybe a pass-through stake in Pied Piper. But you're still kind of that, you're a person who kind of weaves in and out. Was that by design in the show? Did you craft it that way?
I think it started that way. Jian-Yang was such a small character, and they liked me enough to keep bringing me back, and the character grew more and more throughout the season. So every season when I read the script, I get really happy as the character grows, you know. And this year, season 5, he becomes more involved in the boys' business, you know. So that's pretty exciting. And a part of me kind of really likes being that side guy that just comes in, because I don't have to carry like too much of the plot. I can just come in and be funny, right? So it's kind of cool. You just come off the bench and you hit a couple 3-pointers, and I kind of like that. And I don't have to work as much as like say Thomas or something, but I get to just come in and deliver the funny, which is great. Now with the part, as the part expands, hopefully maybe even next season, I become more involved in the in their startup or whatever it might be. We don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know. That's up to the writers, and I'm just happy to be, you know, a growing part of the show.
You got a great imprimatur, and I don't know at what threshold, you know, you make your dad proud ultimately, but I saw you in Vanity Fair. It said, Jimmy O. Yang is ready to be the main a-hole of Silicon Valley. I mean, as the comic powerhouse steps up to take T.J. Miller's place, he discusses his new book, his upcoming role in the rom-com Crazy Rich Asians, and why he actually likes playing characters with thick accents. And in this essay, you said, you know, you kind of love it because me, myself, I don't think I'm an a-hole in real life. Something about me playing an a-hole is very funny because I look very small and nice.
That's true. It's deceiving. You know, I don't know when my parents will be proud. They are kind of, I guess, deep down proud a little bit. You know, foreign parents never really tell you. But I don't think Asian people read Vanity Fair. I need to get on some Chinese newspaper.
What do Chinese Americans say about you when they approach you or they write you or see you at comedy shows?
It's funny. Most of them are very nice. They're very, very nice. And some of them even say like, "Hey, thank you for like representing Asian people on TV." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're welcome." But that's at the end of the day, that's not really a choice. You know, I didn't wake up and choose to represent Asian people. I couldn't represent Nigerians if I wanted to. You know, but it's great, I guess, to be representing Asian people. But I don't try to put that on my shoulder. I just try to be the best actor that I could be, you know?
You know, in the book and some of the stuff I read about you, it said when your minimum wage job at the Comedy Palace didn't pay the bills, you went from DJing at a strip club, quote, "I was pairing R&B songs with strippers like a sommelier at Spago, suggesting which red goes best with beef bolognese," to selling used cars, to driving for Uber. But eventually you achieved the American dream in landing on Silicon Valley, and in 2016 you became a citizen. I have to ask you, at this point that you have recognition, are you getting things like the Thomas Middleditch Verizon type offers? Are you getting advertising, marketing offers, Instagram offers? I mean, what is it like to go from being a bit player / Uber driver on seasons 1 and 2 to kind of a full-fledged, I'll call you an A-lister at this point in Hollywood?
I don't think so, but thank you.
No, actually, you're not an A-lister. You're coming on my show. You're slumming it, so you must be at least a C+.
Yeah, I don't know. Everything's been crazy, and I'm not used to, like, even when I go out to a bar in like LA, like a ton of people want to come take pictures and stuff. I'm not used to that, you know. Like just a few years ago, like you said, I was driving Uber, and it's not something I used to. I think deep down there's still a part of me that's the same kid when I was 13 years old, just trying to fit in. And anytime I even try to go buy like a nice shirt or something, I can hear like my mom in the back of my head yelling at me and just be like, "Hey, that's too expensive. I can buy you 5 in China for the same price." You know, so it's always that guilt and that same kid. Deep down, I think you're always the same person, hopefully. Unless when you get famous, you become an a-hole, and that's not necessarily healthy. I would like to think I'm not that. And but it's almost to the other way for me. Like I almost have like the imposter syndrome. Like I feel like I don't belong. But you know, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying all of it.
Does it make money for you doing stand-up now? It's not a loss leader? I mean, you're not getting SAG minimum anymore on HBO. You've clearly starred in big movies. You know, you've been out there taking huge role. I mean, you were opposite Mark Wahlberg in Patriots Day, after all. I mean, these are not bit roles anymore. You're not you know, kind of that guy to call if you have no one else. Right.
Yeah. And no, the stand-up is great. I'm finding, like, after I wrote this book, I'm able to extract some of the material from the book to do stand-up with, and it's really things that I want to talk about and I want people to hear. So it's been great. I'm finding the motivation again, and yeah, money-wise is fine. It's a lot of travel. I would rather not do that, but there's still nothing like stand-up. Like doing a movie, doing a show, that's all great. But doing stand-up, it's like an instant reward with the audience laughter and then the fans afterwards talking to you. It's just nothing better than that. So I'm still on a tour. And yeah, you guys can go to jimmycomedy.com. That's got my tour dates and such.
Take me back to your first stand-up experience. The terror, the exhilaration, such a departure from what your dad and mom wanted you doing, such an act of rebellion. I mean, I told you, we had Maz Jobrani on this show, and I think he was a PhD at Berkeley or something, and he just dropped it at some point and did stand up, and it was an embarrassment to his parents. But you have to seek out. It's something, you're at that fork in the road. Well, I can be sitting here putting pitch books and spreadsheets together and being on my, third marriage by the time I'm 40 years at Solomon Smith Barney, or I could be doing something that I'm half passionate about. So what was that first time like?
I always say that in order to do stand-up, you need a certain amount of desperation. And typing into Google local open mics is one step away from typing in Google, what's the best way to kill myself? So you do need to kind of hit a rock bottom in your life. Whereas you just got divorced, you got your third DUI, or you realize you're just doing this job that you hate, or for me, a massive panic coming out of college, not knowing what to do and hating everything that I studied. So I found this comedy club called the Haha Comedy Club in North Hollywood. And they have an open mic every night before their real show. And I have to pay $5 for 5 minutes of stage time. But as funny or crappy as that sounds, that was still better than any other choice in my life. Like, I wasn't that funny at first. I don't think anybody is, right? But it was just such a great experience. Like, I saw this was a whole new world that I'm getting into. I'm making new friends. And if I get good at this could be possibly, a career. So that was very liberating to just know that there's something out there that's possible and that exists. And I don't have to be stuck behind a desk for the next 40 years. Because to me, like I said, like the thought of doing something I hate for 40 years is way scarier to me than like taking a leap and jump into the unknown.
Well, so many people end up doing it for 10 or 15 years and then burning out, and then you could be having this epiphany by the time you're 38. But, you took the pain up front as opposed to amortizing it. How did you prepare for that show? Was it just in front of the mirror? Did you go back and pick up old VHS tapes of BET? What did you do?
I had nothing to lose at that point, really. And I was just hoping to just go outside of the house, and that was already a victory. So when you don't have anything to lose, you're pretty comfortable out there.
I learned most of my English by watching BET Rap City. Yeah. Big Take in the Basement, Freestyle Friday. There's nothing more American than Snoop Dogg, And I didn't know any better. I just thought that's how everybody talked. So I went up to the lunch lady the next day. I'm like, hey, what it do, shawty? Yeah. Holla at me some of that waffle fries. What's up?
So I never really had that stage fear in that sense, but and I just wrote down like stupid materials that I either has heard on BET before and I did my own remix of it, or just stupid masturbation jokes. I think that's all hacky stuff that new comics do, right? You're just trying to survive and get that chuckle. And then afterwards, people were like giving me taglines for masturbation jokes as if this was like a real art form. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. Like, people are actually talking about this like sports science or like real like biochemistry or something and breaking it down play by play. And I just found that so cool. And this was like the group of people that I really, felt like I belonged.
So how was that night? I mean, think back to that night. Can you timestamp it for me? What year was it?
This was, I think, I was going into my 5th year of college. So I was around 21, 22, 2000... Would that be 2008
10 years
9?
ago? Right, during the... Yeah. So how was that? How did it follow through to the next act? I mean, did you leave? Did you go home that night exhilarated? Were you on balance?
I did.
Did it take your panic away? Did it have a revelation? Like, at that point in your life where you realize, okay, the hard part's done. I figured out what I want to do. I just have to figure out how to get there.
I saw a little light shining through when I got off that stage and I drove home that night. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to go on Next Comic Standing and win this, or I'm going to be the next biggest comedian or anything like that. It was just, this is a way out. Like, instead of just playing video games at my dad's house, this is my way out. There is a world of people out there, and this is a world that I like. So it definitely opened up the door and gave me some hope. And I went back there like for, I don't know, I paid $5 for 5 minutes the next month or so before I went back to college.
When did you get paid for the first time for going up on stage? Or even a free meal or something, that it was the other way around. You weren't paying to play.
I think it was when I finally got a job at the Comedy Palace in San Diego. It's a Greek restaurant during the day and then called the Greek Palace. And then at night, it's called a Comedy Palace. And I got a job working a door there. I'll get, I think, minimum wage, which was, I don't know, $7 an hour or something like that back then. And
did you at least get some tzatziki or pita out of this experience?
I did. I got some free euros and such. It was nice. But so I guess that was my first payment. But also, really, I wanted to work there not for the $7 an hour, but I wanted the stage time. That's the most important thing. That's the only way to get good in stand-up. In stand-up, you can't just go by yourself to a gym and shoot around. You know what I mean? You can't just go work out by yourself. You have to work out in front of an audience. So it was really important to get that stage time. And I got $7 and 7 minutes of stage time at the Comedy Palace. And that's really how I got my chops,
Full disclosure, I'm Robin Farzad. You're listening to Jimmy O. Yang, best known as Jian-Yang on HBO's Silicon Valley. His new book is How to American, An Immigrant's Guide to Disappointing Your Parents. Jimmy, I see that you were at Google at the end of March. It said authors at Google in Mountain View, California. Talk to me about that crowd. I mean, everybody at Google and Facebook watches Silicon Valley. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, I did a Google talk over there. It was so fun. The whole campus, it was standing room only. I don't know, we had like maybe, I think the room only sat 200 people, but we had like 300-400 people there or something like that, something crazy. And everybody was just so stoked to, I guess, see one of the characters, one of the actors from Silicon Valley. And also, you know, like I said, the Bay Area, it's the equal amount of engineers, Silicon Valley people that likes the show, and also Asian people, which they find, you know, the book very relatable. Which is awesome. You know, every time somebody tells me, oh my God, my dad's exactly the same way. I thought I was crazy or he was crazy, but that just, you know, my dad. And that, you know, reading a book makes me feel a little better about that. So that's great. The whole experience was awesome. And yeah, it was just really fun, positive fanfare.
I mean, this month has been a whirlwind for you. I mean, starts off in San Jose. You hit Philly for the Helium Comedy Club, Lincoln Hall in Chicago, Brooklyn, New York, Boston, Massachusetts, Riverside, California, Sacramento, San Francisco. You are a man in demand now.
It's kind of crazy, so much traveling. My dream right now is to fall into a coma for a couple of days and then, you know, get back up and do it again because I'm getting a little bit tired, but it's so rewarding. This is all the stuff that's happening now. It's all the stuff that I wanted to happen 10 years ago, and I wish I was doing all these shows and people are actually coming out to see me. And now it's happening. So, you know, I got to take advantage with it. I got to make hay while the sun is shining, as they say.
Any plans to do this in China or in, you know, Hong Kong?
I thought about it. I was talking to my buddy Ruben Paul about it. He's an African-American comedian, but he made it in Hong Kong many times as a stand-up, and he's very popular over there. So there's a big expat market over there, Hong Kong, mainland China, even Singapore and stuff like that. But if I go there, I think I will want to try to break that ceiling even and do it, some of it in Mandarin, you know, and to see how that goes. That'll be an endeavor for the future. It'll take a long time and effort. And who knows, with all the government censorship, it might not even be a thing. So we will see. But I've thought about that.
You know, I want to get your thoughts on, you know, sobering up for the role that you played in Patriots Day opposite Mark Wahlberg. It's not, you know, all fun and games there. And what that experience was like breaking through into the big screen. I mean, you were with Melissa McCarthy in the film Life of the Party. We talked about this summer's Crazy Rich Asians. How does that compare to the small screen experience with Mike Judge, where after all, you know, you were slumming it and you were still an Uber driver? You already talked about the economics of making a buck or two as an onstage comedian. What is it like on the big screen?
It's fun, and I still get starstruck when I'm hanging out with Melissa or like Mark or something like that. I don't think that ever goes away, and maybe that's healthy. But you know, Silicon Valley is shot very much in a movie. It's a single camera shoot, or you know, 2 cameras, and it's shot like a movie. So that's like my training ground. You know, I never went to like a Juilliard acting school or whatever. I took acting classes, but really, Silicon Valley was my training. And when I stepped in, onto the Patriots Day set, A Life of the Party, Crazy Rich Asian, it's just another job at that point.
How were you recruited for Patriots Day, the film, and to play a serious dramatic role?
Yeah, just like anything else, I still have to audition quite a bit. And I auditioned, I think, 3 times for Patriots Day. It's based on real life character based on a Chinese immigrant, you know, that was involved in saving the day for the Boston Marathon bombing. Danny Mang, real American hero, man. He was held up at gunpoint, kidnapped by the terrorist brothers, and he ran out of the car at gunpoint and notified the police officers, which led to the shootout in Watertown and the apprehension of those 2
Which why
terrorist
when I
brothers.
saw it, I didn't understand how you kept a straight face, how you can turn it on and off. Like if you see Australian actors or Nicole Kidman can completely feign an American Southern accent. I mean, how did you shift from being such a, you know, natural comedian, and you were spawned out of the comedian experience, to something as straight-laced as this? Just you showed up for the tryout?
I showed up for tryout. I tried very hard. I did all the research I could on Danny. I bothered him in Boston every other day, and I was just being him, you know, for like 3 months or so. And it was tough. It was a hard experience, especially reenacting what happened at night when I got carjacked and kidnapped. And it wasn't pleasant, but it was very rewarding as an actor, as an artist, and also to pay homage to somebody like Danny and the whole event. So I think it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. And in a way, comedy acting is just dramatic acting, but you have to make it funny also. So now you just don't have to be funny. So it's a little, could be, some could argue that it could be a little easier. I think acting is acting. You just got to play it real, and you got to play it authentically.
And you didn't use this experience to act out, to ask out Melissa Benoit, one of your co-characters?
Oh, Supergirl.
Yes, Supergirl. How many people get to act with Supergirl?
We never had a scene together. We're in the same movie, but
we didn't
never
see her
had
in
a
the
scene
catering
together.
truck or anything like that. I mean, you just, Kevin Bacon
Did
was there.
I?
You took
I
a
might
photo
have.
with Kevin Bacon. You're now 1 degree of Kevin Bacon. I mean, this is a big deal. David Ortiz was in the movie.
Yeah, a lot of
J.K.
people, right?
Simmons, the Oscar-winning J.K. Simmons, John Goodman. I mean, this wasn't kind of an amateur indie production. This was a big deal. This had a $50 million budget.
Yeah, I think I try to not think about it as a big deal whenever going in, especially when I'm working on a movie. You just want to treat it as you're here to work and you're just an actor, and the more I think about it, the more it's like, what am I doing here, But the less you think about it, it's just like, this is a job, and I'm good at my job, and I'm going to go do it and try to not get too starstruck. I save the starstruck during like the media press conference later on and stuff. Michelle Monaghan is in that movie. I'm a huge fan of hers, and it's just awesome, and I think the best thing about this business is, the people that you're fans of could potentially be a fan of yours. And I try to, I guess, approach it that way, as if pretending I'm on the same level as those people. Whether I am or not, I don't know. But I think that's the only way to keep myself sane and not get super starstruck when I'm acting with them.
Well, Jimmy, in the few minutes we have left, tell us about your plans, kind of as the econ major, as a person who finally has the freedom to apply some business sensibility to a career. This is kind of out of left field, but I wonder when I talk to creatives, like, for example, when we had Maz Jobrani on the show, I said, here you are getting paid by Comedy Central or by Showtime ridiculous amounts to be on stage and have that special. But when you're trying to be in a feature film, you have to do an Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign to get that supported. What do you say about the business model of being the funny guy in your case? For example, if you were really in demand, could you record an hour-long program and have fans out there pay to play, pay-per-view around the world as opposed to touring?
Yeah, I think it's just as important to have a good business sense as a comedian, especially, and to be funny. I know so many people that's hilarious, been doing comedy for 15 years, but they never made it nowhere because they didn't know how to approach it. So for example, I think my friend Joe Coy, he shot his own special and then sold it to Netflix. Now he's selling out everywhere, adding like 10 shows to like the Irvine Improv. And it's amazing. Sometimes you got to bet on yourself when other people's not betting on you and putting it in the right outlet. So I think you need to know where to put your effort and your time. I think that's the most important thing as you grow in this business. And putting out products, putting out intellectual properties like, a book, a stand-up special, or a script, a TV show. And I think that's what's important. A lot of people, bless them, they're very comfortable once they get on a TV show and they stop working, which is great. I wish I'm more that way so I can have more sleep. But for me, it's always like, I'm afraid I'm going to fall off the next day and not make another dime. So I'm always out there trying to create, and I really enjoy it. Like the process of writing a book. I'm writing a couple of scripts right now, and hopefully turning the book into a TV show or a movie soon, and doing all that stand-up, like just creating stuff out of thin air. I think that's what gets us artists going, and that's the most important thing. Like IP, the intellectual properties that you create, that is your currency.
We are going to see How to American in some sort of screen treatment?
I think so. I'm working on it.
Well, because we've talked about this in many other episodes. This is no longer just about 3 or 4 media conglomerates. Netflix is massively acquisitive. Amazon is doing these things. Apple wants in the game. Facebook. I'm sure you hear it from people, but you resound generationally as the 30-year-old and what people watch on Sunday nights. So you have leverage to kind of dictate your terms. Do you want to do a Netflix comedy special? Do you want to do something for one of the big networks like HBO or Showtime? Is Comedy Central still as relevant as it used to be? And it's funny in that you cut your teeth on watching BET comedy.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a show on BET. Who knows? It's just wherever the wind takes me, and for me, I just got to keep creating, and wherever it goes, it goes. And could be a movie too. Who knows? And just trying to see what will hit next, and I'm working hard to get it out there.
Thank you so much, Jimmy Yang. Jimmy O. Yang, I am so grateful that you have subordinated your career at this promising phase to come on my slummy show. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
My joy. Full disclosure, our engineer is John Valentine. Special thanks to NPR West in Los Angeles for hosting Mr. Jimmy O. Yang. We are on NPR One. Love us. And on iTunes at FullDRadio.com, Twitter at FullDRadio, Facebook.com/FullDRadio. Jimmy Yang, give us your website.
JimmyComedy.com.
A funny guy, and look for him Sunday nights on Silicon Valley on HBO. Like Jimmy, we are changing the world. Think of us as an Uber for thought leadership. Visionaries for bootstrap deep dive deliverables that have VCs banging on our doors. I'm Robin Farzad. Back with you next week.